Hey guys, it's I Plead the First. I'm Joe. We're going to be talking about some football today because I don't want to talk about politics. So stick around. I'll teach you something. It'll be fun. You can look super smart at the office tomorrow and tell everybody how you know more about football than they do. See you on the other side.
American dream. I plead the first. White shirt, blue jeans. I bleed the verse. American dream.
All right, so here we are on I Plead the First. I guarantee you that you're going to get unwoke sports when I talk about sports. So this is strictly the sport of football. We're talking about pro football today. I'm talking about salary cap issues. So I get a lot of comments, and I'm huge into pro football. I love pro football. I love all football. But I really enjoy following kind of the business side of pro football. I enjoy team building is what most people call it, and just the process of managing your cap, managing your draft assets, keeping your team young, keeping good players on the team, maintaining and retaining those players that you do well with in the draft. So we're going to talk about that today because I get tons of comments like, well, the salary cap doesn't really exist. And then I get also on the other side of that, oh, your team's in salary cap hell. No. The actual reality is somewhere in the middle, and it really matters who your team's owner is. So if you want to find out more about that, hang on to the end. I'll explain why the owner matters so much. First, we're going to talk about, and I'm going to put some cool graphics up on the screen for you guys to help you follow along with the conversation. So first, we're going to talk about today the Kansas City Chiefs because it's my team and I know them the best, so that makes it easier for me to talk about these situations. But also, they made a big splash move in free agency today that had Twitter going nuts. And Twitter is losing their mind right now. If you go over here, I'm going to read a couple tweets to you. I'll pop them up on the screen as well. Chiefs are giving former Pats O lineman Joe Thuney a 5-year, $80 million deal per sources. So if you don't know who Joe Thuney is, he was the highest rated offensive lineman coming into this offseason, coming into free agency. And if you do kind of follow football quite a bit, then you've probably also heard, oh, the Chiefs are in salary cap trouble. They're not going to be able to pay an offensive line and this, that, and other thing. None of that is reality. We did release our 2 tackles, but that had a lot more to do with their injury concerns than it did their salary. Eric Fisher, in particular, tore his Achilles in the AFC Championship game. I think best outlook for me personally is mid-season next season if he can play. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to keep a guy that's in his last year of his contract on the payroll when you can save $12 million by cutting him, and then you don't have to worry about it. You can go spend that money elsewhere. Did we have to do that move to get under the salary cap? No. And that's why I say it's not a salary cap casualty. So when you hear people talk about salary cap casualties, those are guys that you have to cut them to get under the salary cap and get your salary cap right. That was not the case for Eric Fisher. We could have kept him on the team. We could have also kept Mitchell Schwartz. We could have cut one and not the other. We could have kept both. And I'll show you how. I'll kind of illustrate how. And we'll start with the argument that everybody that has another team kind of is going to want to hate on Patrick Mahomes a little bit because he just got paid a huge contract. He was running for his life the whole time in the Super Bowl. And despite what your eyes might tell you, he played a hell of a game in the Super Bowl, but he didn't have the help on the offensive line. So a lot of people are saying, look, see, that's what you do when you take a big, huge contract. Patrick Mahomes' contract is actually the opposite of everything that you guys are saying it is. It's not a big, selfish contract for him to take where we can't afford to pay offensive linemen. And that was represented today when we paid the best offensive lineman in free agency. But what I'll throw up on the screen right now is a list of players. It's the list of quarterbacks ranked by their salary cap hit. Now, if you would have looked at this 4 or 5 days ago, this list would have looked a lot different. Patrick Mahomes would have been number 11 on the list with his new contract at $24 million salary cap hit, okay? And some other guys have reworked some stuff too. So the list has moved around, and now number 10 is currently sitting at 22.9 million. So Patrick has fluctuated up and down the list a couple times in the last 5 days. Last time I looked at it, he was number 11. And today he is currently number 23. So how do you go from being paid $24 million a year this year as your cap hit number is what it's called, to getting paid $7.4 million? He didn't take a pay cut. They didn't have to beg him to restructure. That's not how any of that works. When they structure these contracts for the signing, they're doing it in conjunction with the player and the agent, and they work out these deals so that they're structured in a way so they can do this. And the Chiefs are famous for this. They do this all the time. So do what's another good team at it? The Rams are pretty good at it. There's a lot of teams that are pretty good at it. The Ravens are pretty good at it. Basically, all the teams that you look at and they're always able to go get whatever player they want is because they have a really good salary cap guy. And the Chiefs do have a really, really good salary cap guy. $24 million was his cap hit. How do you reduce that to $7 million? Well, you convert bonuses. So there's all kinds of different bonuses out there. I don't want to get too in the weeds with this video. Essentially, certain bonuses are paid immediately, while certain bonuses are paid to a date. And if you convert it to an immediate bonus, then it's no longer money against the cap. And that's what the Chiefs did. So they took that $17 million of bonus money that Patrick Mahomes was going to get this year, no matter what, and they converted it to a different kind of bonus. And by doing that, they were able to write him a check immediately, and all that $17 million came off of this year's salary cap. So you might say, well, that's cheating. Yeah, everybody's able to do this within the rules. Your limitation is actually your owner. We're going to get to that in a second. I don't want to get to that just yet. I want to talk about some other kind of money. I want to move around a little bit. So you look at Joe Thuney and his contract. Well, let's rewind just a second and let's talk about Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz and why they got released. I alluded to it. It was their injury history. Eric Fisher, like I said, had the ruptured Achilles. Mitchell Schwartz has a serious back injury. It sounds like he's probably going to retire. So that's why they released those guys. Eric Fisher probably not going to be available till late in the season, and I wouldn't be surprised if he is available at the late in the season. They may re-sign him and bring him back on the roster and let him finish out for the playoffs, especially if they're struggling at tackle or they got a rookie that needs a little help. Mitchell Schwartz was another issue, probably up against retirement. Let's save the money. Those two guys put together saved $17 million. Why does this all matter? Because the Chiefs were coming into this offseason $20 million over the salary cap. And all the people that kind of are hoping and praying for the Chiefs to fail were really super excited. And they're like, oh, yeah, they suck. They can't manage their cap. Patrick Mahomes cost them and blah, blah, blah. It's false. Sorry. I hate to burst your bubble. That's not the way it works. We released those two tackles because it was good business, not because they were salary cap casualties. Patrick Mahomes' money got converted, so that's right there together $34 million in cap savings. We also restructured Travis Kelce. So guess what? You didn't have to cut him. Also, you restructured, who was the other guy? Can't think of it right off the top of my head. Oh, Chris Jones. He just re-signed a contract last year too. Guess what? Restructured him, saved also a bunch of money. And we have a bunch more of those moves that we can do. We can move, re-sign or re-extend, I guess is what it's called. We can extend Tyrann Mathieu and free up a bunch of cap space that way. We can extend Tyreek Hill and free up a bunch of cap space that way. And there are other contract restructures that you can do to save up a bunch of money in the cap if we see somebody that we want to go get. So how does all this, now that we've kind of talked about the Chiefs, how does this apply to other teams? How do other teams deal with it? Let's talk about that for a moment. So I'm going to talk about the Raiders because they are a perfect example of a team that doesn't often do this. And the difference is the owner. Okay. Why does it matter? Let's look back to the Khalil Mack situation. They had probably at the time the best edge rusher in the league in Khalil Mack, due for a contract extension. Most everybody was saying you got to get it done. You have to keep Khalil Mack. You draft a superstar like that every so often, so you got to keep him in town. And they ended up not. They ended up, everybody knows, trading him away for, I think, at least 2 first-round picks to the Bears. And they got some value back. They got a lot of draft capital back, and they avoided paying that large contract to Khalil Mack. But you say, honestly, why do you do that? Well, Khalil Mack, he's not performed as well as he did in Chicago. They asked him to do some different things than the Raiders did as well. But it's really about the bonus money, again, that like we talked about earlier. With Khalil Mack's contract, specifically Mark Davis, the owner of the Raiders, was worried about being able to afford his signing bonus. And a signing bonus is due immediately, which is what often these other bonuses, roster bonuses and things like that, that's what they're converted to save cap money. So when you see a contract structured with roster bonuses in it, those are often put in place as a mechanism to get more cap room later on in that year and still pay the guy what he wants to be paid. So it just gives you that flexibility. With Khalil Mack, the Raiders didn't feel like they had the capital that year with the move impending, building a new stadium, all the money that Mark Davis was putting out there. He's a super rich dude. He is not as rich as some of the other owners in the NFL. So it was really just kind of a bad timing deal. I think if this same thing happened this year and they had Khalil Mack coming up for a contract, I think they could afford to keep him. But with the move and everything pending, the new stadium being built, they couldn't afford to keep him that year and still sign a check for that signing bonus. So what they did was they traded him, and he went to Chicago to a very wealthy owner that could happily sign the check for Khalil Mack. And if you look at how that's worked out for them, the Raiders won on that deal, in my opinion. They got a lot back in return. And Khalil Mack is he's not performing like he was before. He 8.5 sacks in 2019 and 9 sacks in 2020. I want to be clear that is not the end-all be-all measurement of how an edge player is performing, but it's what most people go to, and it's an okay start to have a conversation about how a guy's performing. Really what you want to look at is pressure numbers, how many times they pressure the quarterback, and win percentages against the offensive lineman that they're playing. So that's more advanced stuff. But the Khalil Mack thing worked out for the Raiders, and sometimes you're going to see it go that way. So if your team is one of those teams that isn't always just coming up with cap money, don't be disheartened. You can still win that way. There's just lots of different approaches to the salary cap. The Chiefs, the Rams, the Texans to an extent, who else? Baltimore. A lot of these teams that have kind of a open checkbook, they're moving players' money around, and that's how they're seemingly always able to afford a big name free agent. Your team's owner might have a different approach, or he may not have the same checkbook. That doesn't mean you're gonna perpetually be a cellar dweller team. So take no worries about that. But I hope this conversation kind of helped clear up some of the confusion about the salary cap. And the ultimate answer is, to answer the question at the beginning of the video, does the salary cap exist? It exists, but how much it restrains a team is dependent on 2 things: their owner's liquid assets and their cap guy's ability to structure contracts in a smart way. And there's only a few guys in the league that are really, really good at it. John Dorsey, when he was with the Chiefs, was really, really bad at it. And that's why you always saw the Chiefs kind of falling short, man. It's because we were spending money on guys that we shouldn't have. And we were just waiting a year too late a lot of times to re-sign our guys, and we were using the tags. If you see your team using the franchise tag and stuff like that, that's usually not a good situation. I would point to the Dallas Cowboys. They waited, really, I think, too long. Although some would argue that they ended up getting the exact same deal that they wanted with Dak Prescott because it was more about the years than the money, because Jerry has money. It's just a really complex topic, man. And if you guys ever want to hear more about the salary cap, I'm glad to teach you everything I know. But hopefully that helped you out a little bit, man. So the Chiefs started out $20 million over the salary cap. They dropped it all the way down to $20 million under the salary cap, so a $40 million swing. And just to be clear, just because they went out and signed Joe Thuney today and they ate up some more of that cap space does not mean they're done in free agency if they don't want to be. If they find another guy that they want to go after, or they want to make a trade for Orlando Brown Jr. or somebody like that, they still can. So don't be discouraged if you're a Chiefs fan. Don't be discouraged if you're one of the teams that plays a little bit more money ball, if that makes sense. So hit me up with questions in the comments. Be glad to chat with you about this kind of stuff. I love doing football videos. Probably won't do another one for a while because it's not really the theme of the channel, but it's I Plead the First, man, which means we can talk about whatever we want to. So have a great week, guys. I hope you had a great start to your week. Talk to you soon.
I could really use a change of scenery. Yeah. Everybody smoking all the greenery. Yeah. Close the match 'cause they were handed down to me. But I'm still fly, I know. I'm still fly, let's go. It could all be worse, I could be a hater like you.